Hi, my name is Jennifer McPeters, and I'm a mental health nurse practitioner student at Eastern Kentucky University, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my proposal for the treatment of adolescent depression. Over the last decade, depression rates in adolescents has skyrocketed from 8% to a staggering 13.3% in 2017. An estimated 3.2 million adolescents will develop at least one episode of depression in their lifetime. Because of this increase, Healthy People 2030 has dedicated multiple goals to help combat this issue. Those goals look at prevention, detection, and treatment. The first goal would be to increase adolescent resilience. Resiliency is a modifiable factor that has been proven to be a predictive factor in the development of depression later on in life. The second goal would be increased depression screening at well-child checks. Currently, only 8.5% of children are being screened at their well-child checks. We want to increase that number to 13.5%. And lastly, we want to increase the treatment rate of adolescents with depression. Currently, only 40% of adolescents diagnosed with depression are receiving mental health treatment. That is for a variety of reasons, some of those reasons being there are not enough providers. Others are that there's a stigma attached with mental health treatment, especially in the adolescent population. So we need to focus on getting quality care, accessible care, and some education to these adolescent populations to let them know how important it is to take care of their mental health well-being. The proposed intervention I chose for this topic is to treat mild to moderate adolescent depression with interpersonal psychotherapy for adolescents, or IPT-A for short. IPT-A is a therapy that really focuses on the person as an individual and their social skills and any conflicts they're having in their social scene. So with their peers, their parents, with the general world around them, within themselves. And it gives them skills in order to improve those relationships. And I chose 3 levels of evidence to aid in the determination of choosing IPT-A for the treatment of depression. The first level is a level 1 meta-analysis that concluded that in all 10 studies that were included in the meta-analysis, every single one of them recommended IPT-A and said that it was more effective than the control group for the treatment of depression in adolescents. The level 2 is a randomized control trial that also looked at the effectiveness of the IPT-A. And it too concluded that IPT-A was more effective than the control treatment. It found that 6 months later down the road during a follow-up, they noticed that the participants in the IPT-A group had even greater depression rating improvement compared to the control group at the 6-month follow-up than they did directly after the ending of the trial. And lastly, I chose a level 4 qualitative study, and it took a small scale exploratory study on the experience of adolescents with depression. So this really kind of let us do a more personalized approach to how adolescents feel with depression. So overall, they all basically said the same thing, and that was that they feel alone in their depression. They don't understand why they were chosen to have depression, and that they really saw treatment as the last result. They kind of didn't want to go to treatment. They didn't understand why it was important. So it is important to see these things in order for us to be able to get more adolescents into treatment. The theoretical framework that I chose for this proposal would be Phil Barker's middle range theory, and it is titled The Tidal Model of Mental Health Recovery. There's 2 major assumptions in this theory, and that is that change is the only constant and that people are their stories. The theory centers on 3 domains, and those are the self, others, and world. This goes hand in hand with IPT-A therapy because, again, they're both looking at the individual. They're looking at how people's relationship affect their mental health and how we can improve that, and how every story that a patient comes with to therapy is important in their life story, and that we need to be focusing on how to improve that and how to improve where they're at that moment. So my plan for implementation is to First, this study is going to take place at a high school that already has a mental health clinic inside. So we are going to first conduct a team meeting. We're to decide on a timeline for the study. We're going to delegate roles, and we're going to develop a consent form. Then we are going to start identifying potential participants, and our goal is to include at least 20 students. Viable candidates for this study are between the ages of 12 and 17. They need to be diagnosed with mild to moderate depression, and they currently cannot be on any other depression medicines, and they can't have any concurrent mental health diagnosis. So no anxiety, no OCD, no psychosis, just strictly mild to moderate depression for this study. And then participants will be identified for the study by either teacher recommendation, a parent recommendation, students can self-recommend, and then people that are already in the clinic at the school can also be included into this study if they want to be. Once we finalize who's going to be in the study, we're going to get the consents signed, and then we are going to administer a baseline depression scale with the Children's Depression Inventory, or the CDI for short. It's a modified Beck depression scale. It has 28 questions, and it was approved for the ages of between the ages of 7 and 17. And that will be the depression scale we use for this study. Once we do that, we are then going to separate the students into groups with no more than 5 students in a group. And they're going to be completing 12 weeks of therapy in that group setting. The reason we chose to have smaller group settings instead of a larger one is that way it can be more intimate. It can the students can feel more comfortable in that group to share stories and answer truthfully and that kind of thing. We are going to complete a depression screening scale every month during the study, so 3 during the study. We're going to hold a monthly team meeting to see if there's any problems that we need to address, anything we need to adjust, anything like that. And at the conclusion of that therapy, we're going to have a meeting with the parent and the student so we can go over progress, we can go over next steps, we can go over how they're feeling, that kind of stuff with that parent. And then we're going to be at the follow-up. And at the follow-up, we are going to be also completing 3 more depression screenings, and that's going to be monthly for 3 months following the end of the 12-week therapy. And then once that is done, we're going to compile all of the data into a report so we can disseminate that to the stakeholders, the participants, the parents, people at school. Anybody is going to be free to read that. Our outcome measures are going to be with that depression screening score, that CDI, or the Children's Depression Inventory. And then, so there'll be 7 of those total provided. We're going to do the baseline, the first one, and then there's going to be 3 during the study, and then again 3 more after the study. So a total of 7 times that CDI is going to be administered to the participants. Once that data is all compiled, that is going to be shared to the public. So the timeline for this is that first month we are going to be preparing for the study. We're going to be coordinating with the staff at the school, identifying consents, identifying the participants, setting up the times of the sessions, all of that in that first month. And then in months 2 to 4, we are going to conduct the 12-week therapy sessions. And then do the monthly inventory assessments. And then months 5 to 7, we're going to complete the follow-up assessments with that CDI and then start compiling the data. So overall, the whole study is going to take about 7 months. And that is it. You can see at the bottom of the slide, there is a visual aid for the timeline of the study. But that is it. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and have a wonderful evening.